Now, have you ever wondered what might bring the so-called elites of the media back to earth? Ever wondered if anything could reconnect the political media class with the mainstream? Maybe an election? Wasn't that the whole point? Green left politicians, academics and most of the Canberra Press Gallery got it wrong and the voters fixed it, right? Presented with costly climate gestures, virtue signalling on refugee policy or extra taxes fuelled by the politics of envy, voters said no. That's the wisdom of the crowd, the triumph of democracy, surely. Not at the national broadcaster. On Radio National, they wonder now if democracy is an impediment to addressing climate change. Here's Scott Stevens.
Here, I think, is where the real gap, that some kind of electoral or political response to climate change threatens to fall down. It may well be that because of developments within modern democracy, democracy has itself reached a kind of limit of its current ability to respond in any meaningful way to the emergency presented by climate change.
The Minefield is hosted by Stevens and Waleed Ali, who also hosts The Project on Channel 10. Now, if The Project gives us an undergraduate approach with fashionable causes and lots of jokes, The Minefield is almost the opposite. Still the green left fashionable causes, but deliberately self-important, introspective and sometimes impenetrable. Here's Ali from the same episode.
I wonder two things. One, whether this is about democracy's limits. And I think there's truth to the idea that democracy is becoming less and less capable of responding, not just to climate change, but to big issues.
Issues that require coalitions of interested parties, let's say.
Well, I would go further than that. I would say issues that require decisions to be made that don't leave everybody better off.
No.
There you have it. Apparently it's voters who are too stupid or too selfish, or both. Ali went on to lament nation-states only acting in self-interest, apparently dismissing how countries like Australia fund hundreds of billions of dollars worth of foreign aid, send troops to defend innocent lives and keep the peace, and join global action on everything from climate change under the Paris Agreement to blocking the spread of nuclear weapons. Listen to this next bit, because at the end you'll hear how even the Minefield's guest, David Scholzberg from Sydney University, was taken aback by the host's attitude to democracy and the nation-state.
But there are two things, I think, that Waleed flagged. One is the fact that nation-states have a very hard time acting in a manner that's not in their immediate and territorial interests. And the other is part of the, I think, Waleed, you were kind of gesturing in this direction, but it's part of the rhythm, the attenuated time frames within which democracies tend to work, that we have this kind of rhythm of elections, and it's very difficult then to move in directions or plan for things in that longer frame. Are we talking about two inherent problems that are endemic to democracy, or are we just talking about an attenuated, restrictive, maybe imaginatively impoverished democracy?
I thought I was cynical about democracy, but you guys, that's quite a way to put it. But I oddly enough, I'm not as suspect, I guess, about the nation state.
Yeah, they're cynical about democracy when it doesn't go your way. Remember when you listen to this waffle that you pay for it. So much of the focus, just like Kerry O'Brien, is on climate change. It seems to be the sum of all their fears, and a grand plan of unspecified action is the sum of all their dreams. It's not as if they haven't been trying to push democratic action. Here's Ali on The Project a few years back.
And I don't think Tony cares. I don't think you even care. You spent most of this report thinking about going to YouTube to relive Bieber being choked out at Coachella. The truth is, no one cares. So let this be the first news report for an audience that doesn't exist. Not only are the people this affects not watching and not voters, they're not even born yet. It's the generations to come that will look back and see this for what it is. A willful disregard for the future of this nation by the people we've elected to lead us.
In fact, 6 months or so ago, when the polls were encouraging for the Green left, Ali seemed all in favour of democracy as he proclaimed the Liberals were on the wrong side of history. It's a remarkable thing to see a populist political stance transform into a liability in front of your eyes, wrote Ali. So it is with the Federal Coalition's adventures in climate denialism. The problem for the Coalition is that it has been on the unpopular side of so many debates now. Same-sex marriage, the Banking Royal Commission, renewable energy, that once people gave themselves permission to find the Coalition a bit weird, the dominoes could fall very quickly. And once that disdain showed up in the hard election data, the rest of the political class had permission to reach a similar conclusion. Fast forward till just a few weeks ago, after the election, and Ali was writing with a lot less buoyancy. Climate change simply doesn't drive votes in the suburbs, where it apparently ranks as a third or fourth order issue, like things such as taxes and property prices. Don't you love the way they sneer at the people in the burbs? It's a pretty warped interpretation of democracy, isn't it? You champion the will of the people when it favours your causes, but you diss them and talk about the limitations of democracy when the vote doesn't go your way. Would people like Stevens and Ali ever consider that the voters might be right? Perhaps voters, yes, even in the suburbs, see through the climate alarmism, think about the costs and benefits of policies, question uncosted Labor targets, and comprehend Australia's minuscule role in global emissions growth. Just maybe, wild thinking I know, just maybe, voters are a little bit smarter than the ponderous poseurs of the political media class.